Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Convention Confessional. My name is Katy Hunt, and for the next so many minutes, hours, days, God, however long we end up talking on this one, we're going to introduce our wonderful guest here. This is my friend Jess. You might know her as Shiva Cosplay. Hello, Jess.
Hi, Katie.
How is you?
I miss you.
We had like a 15-minute conversation before we started even recording this podcast.
Like,
It's
we should
like,
probably start generating content for you.
yeah, right. Like, wait,
Just
maybe we
shooting the
just hit the
shit.
record button. Oh man. Well, my dear, I'm glad you could come on the show. I'm very excited to have you.
Thank you.
I was like, who can I talk like stories with, like more in-depth stories with that I haven't. I mean, I've used Ryan so much and he doesn't mind at all, but it's like, who else has been through it with me? And I'm like, I know who's been through it with me. Oh, Jess.
We've been through some shit.
We have.
Yeah.
We
We've
have.
also been cosplaying since forever. We're ancient now.
We are. We're like those legend action figures without like the fame and the promotional money.
Just cosplay grandmas.
Just don't call us grandmas. We're like cosplay aunts.
Okay, that's fair.
Right,
Auntie.
right. We're not
Mhm.
like completely old yet, right? Right? That makes me feel better
For yourself.
to myself. Anyways,
Yep.
yeah, no, Jess and I have been cosplaying together. 2009, I think, was the first time we cosplayed together.
Yeah, I think that was the first time we did a group together. I mean, I started going to cons in '05, and I
Hmm.
I started making costumes before that. I started doing it in 2003, but I couldn't go to any conventions. I was still in college, and my schedule just never worked out with Anime Boston, and
Hmm.
it just didn't happen. So I was kind of like a cosplay.com lurker. I made costumes and posted pictures, but I didn't go to anything and meet all you fabulous people until a couple years later.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I started going in 2005. I think I met you probably a year or two after.
It was
Just like
2007 at the chess game.
yes, at AB.
Yep.
Yes. And then I saw you at some other conventions like AAC, and then yeah, the first time we actually did a project together was 2009.
Yep. And we met at well, we kind of like really met, like started talking to each other at that house party for
Yes.
the New Year's party. And
Yes.
it was like literally the next morning we used to like film videos with our friends to like make like random music videos. And we were filming that womanizer video.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was Britney Spears, and it was you, me, and Bree.
Yep.
And we were like, "Oh my god, I love Britney Spears! Like, this would be such a good song to dance to." And of course, you are the dance person. Like you,
Yes, I danced my whole life, and I was in a company for like 4 years after college. And actually I stopped dancing in 2008 because I had to get a real job because I had no money.
the artist
uh
life.
yeah, so like the year before we did this idea, I was kind of really missing it. And also I think that starting when I started going to Anime Boston, like dance skits back then, I think people totally forget what dance skits were like back then.
Mm.
It was totally not what it is now. People are much more talented now. Back then, people didn't really dance.
They did the Haru Haru
They
dances.
did that, but they didn't actually even do it. They just stood there and kind of like did the caramel dancing,
Yeah.
or they did. Some of them would do like yada.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Oh
actually was
god.
a pretty I remember doing that, but some people did it well, but it wasn't really like what I as someone who danced, it wasn't what I consider like a performance piece. Like it was just kind of like people messing around. Granted, masquerades also people didn't put as much effort into them in general back then. Like it was
But
a different era.
talk about aging ourselves though. The yada.
I know the
I
yada.
know.
Everybody's half your audience is just like I have no idea what they're
Why are
talking
they
about.
talking about? I think I was born that year. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Google it, okay? So, and then I think there was 2006, Anime Boston 2006, there was this awesome Bleach skit, and I think they won Best in I can't remember if they won, but they one of the last numbers, and I still think I've looked it up on YouTube, it's still there, and
Mhm.
it's really good. For Anime Boston 2006, is a Bleach dance skit. And they didn't do like crazy dancing, but they knew what they were doing and they planned it out and they told like a story.
Yeah.
with the dance, and I remember being in the audience, I was like, "Yeah, that! I wanna do that!" Like, that kind of thing, 'cause
Mhm.
it made me miss it, right?
Right,
And so I was like, "If I ever compete in this thing, I wanna do something like that."
right.
And then it wasn't until 3 years later that we came up with an idea, but that was always in my head of, like, the way to do a masquerade skit, I
Yeah,
guess.
and it was just like it was weird because it was just so, like, fluid because we were just like, "Oh my god, like, Britney Spears, so good. Oh,
Yep.
the Circus album just came out. Wow, Circus is a really good song we could dance to. Huh, Dead Moon Circus." Like,
Boom! Idea within, like, an hour,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's just like it
Yeah.
fell in, and then we were like, "Are we really gonna do this?" And, I mean, what, we practiced for 4 months?
So that was New Year's Day,
Yep.
right? And I think Anime Boston was late that year. Anime Boston was in May. Now it's usually around Easter,
No, it was
so it
definitely in
moves
April
around.
because it just came up in my time hop thing that we'd won.
No, it was later because the outside courtyard was open that year. Here, I'm gonna look it up. I know what date it was
I
that
could've
year.
sworn I just got, like, a best in show thing.
Could have been
Hmm.
we
But anyways,
posted it.
so we come up with this
Yeah.
skit, and we're just like, "Are we really gonna do this?" And that's when we had brought in our other friend to do it with us because we need 4 for the Dead Moon Circus.
Yep.
And then we chose who everybody was going to be.
Yep.
And I chose to be the most covered up because no one deserved that.
And I chose the one with pants because I wanted to wear pants.
Right. And then the other 2 got to fight over who had the biggest midriff. So I
Right.
was like, "I'm out. Y'all
Yeah,
can
so
have
no,
it."
not touching that shit.
Nope. Nope. I'm
No.
like, no one in this universe needs to see that, period.
Can I just say that I'm really thankful we did that skit before they had, like, the big LED screen in,
Yes.
like, high def.
Yep. Same, like me
It
too.
it used to be more of a projection, so it was much more forgiving.
Yeah, the quality of the video for, like, our performance is, like, grainy at best. It's like, "Thank God."
That's for the best.
It is for the best. The Stone Age.
Yep,
Um, but yeah, like, we were serious about it, we got to hold everybody,
yep.
and then about what? Maybe 2 weeks later, we met up and started learning this dance. Maybe, like, 3 weeks?
Not even the first rehearsal we had was in a hotel room. First, why were we in a hotel room?
It was March. Was it March? We didn't do it in a month, did we?
No, we did it really early, yeah,
Because
yeah,
we were
we
in
did.
because we were in the hotel room practicing what we'd done already, I think, for Bree's birthday party in
In
March.
Feb Was it March? Yeah, we already did that because I we really hooked on to the idea very early, and what actually is crazy about it, because 'cause I've choreographed a whole lot of stuff, this came the easiest of anything I've ever done,
Yeah,
right? I don't know why, it just, like, was really easy to visualize, like, everything I tried worked, like, the first time. I don't feel like we changed much, maybe a couple of things, but most of the stuff worked the first time we tried it,
right.
and, um and I think right away we decided to incorporate some of the props from the show that the characters use, like the poi balls and the pool cues,
Which
and,
is like, okay, like, a dance skit is hard enough, but then we're just like, "Guys, what if we do pool cues and we get these light up balls?"
but it was great because it fit in with the characters, but it also added more visual stuff. Because
It
especially,
did.
like, it's not like you're gonna have this, like, crazy clean professional dance with people who aren't, like, professional dancers, like, and so you have to make it a show,
Right,
and I think that made it a show, and we kind of but it didn't feel like it was too much, like, it
right.
worked.
Oh, and I mean, we turned our tuxedo mask into, a maypole.
Yes, I forget when I thought of that, but I'm like, "We're gonna do this ribbon shit." Like, I think I remember I used to take the bus to Boston every day for work, and I remember
Mhm.
standing in line at the bus terminal being like, "How do we end it?" Because 'Cause we're not doing the whole song, like, it's way too long and blah, 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 and, we had kind of made up most of it. We'd gotten towards the end, and
Yep.
I was like, "We're gonna fucking do ribbons, and we're gonna tie them up." Like, and it was just kind of like I'm like, "It works, it totally worked," and then we'll stop here, and it worked. It worked really well,
It
and we practiced the hell out of it,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that Steve actually we forget our tuxedo mask. I almost had forgotten this in retrospect. He wasn't originally in it.
Nope.
We originally had 4, and he even though he was there for the idea, he originally wanted nothing to do with it, but then when he saw us starting to rehearse it, he's like, I remember he's like, "I wanna do it."
Yes, I want in.
And the funny thing was, I remember telling him, I'm like, "Well, I already kind of expected that, so I already figured out how to put you in." And he was like, "Okay." And 5 people looks better anyway.
Yep.
It's
And the best
uneven.
part about that skit, like, okay, so I don't know if anybody I mean, I'm sure a few people on here are friends of ours, so they've seen Anime Boston, they've heard the story 1,000 times, they're sick
Yep.
of it, they're skipping this episode. But
Yes, they are.
They're like, "Oh, they're talking about that again."
Fair.
But, um, the best part about that skit was if you watch it, it's like you're focusing on the person that's announcing us, and we're on stage and we're kind of putting stuff everywhere, but, like,
Mhm.
you never really see him come on stage because he matches the background because he's in tuxedo mask, so he's all black.
And they didn't have the screen back then.
Right,
It was
so you
all
didn't
a
really see
dark
him come on,
background. Yep,
and then all of a sudden, like, when he shows up, he just kind of appeared, and you
yep.
hear it in the audience. People are like,
People asked us if we had a trap door on stage
Yep.
after. We're like, "No, he just walked out. You just missed it." And it's funny because I remember us trying to figure out how to get him on stage, and we're like, "What if we did this or hit him?" And he was like, "No, I'm walking. They'll forget." And he was right.
And you're
Like,
right.
they totally forgot. They weren't paying attention.
I was like, "What
Uh,
if you want the balls out and they were glowing?" And everyone's like, "What?"
well, I also think if you think about it, like, when you're in the audience and I mean, I'm not used to it because I judge the masquerade, and part of what I judge is how fast you set up,
Mhm.
right? But, like, if you're just an audience member, you're not paying attention to, like, the transition,
Yeah,
right? You're just like, "Oh, they're ready to go." You know, they're not you're not, like, looking at everything they're doing, so I
right,
think
like,
he
that's the whole point of the host is to be like, "An illusion, you see
right,
nothing, focus on me."
right, and he was good at that, so
But it was crazy, like, it was a
and
hell
no
of a 4 months.
it was, and people it went off really well. It wasn't, like, flawless, but, like, I was worried about bigger things happening. I think the biggest thing was we didn't really get to practice in the costumes ahead of time,
Right,
and the costumes are simple, but the wigs were a bitch.
right, like, I had the simplest wig, I was not stupid. I was
Yes,
like, I'm gonna use the one that's all covered up and barely has a wig on." Nailed it.
but the wigs were not easy to move in, and we
No.
also forget back in 2009, trying to make a crazy wig like that was a completely different experience than, like this is the pre-Arta, like, there's
Yeah,
no wefts,
no,
there's no, like, extent like, you we
no.
were just flying by the seat of our pants
Like, we
making them.
literally would make ponytails, cut the ponytail, and then you had to glue the hair inside of foam balls.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
Exactly.
ugh.
It was a nightmare, and, like, everything was Sharpie dyed, and so making those were really difficult, and they also didn't have like, they didn't sell, like, the kind of attachments they did, and so I was like, "How not only how are we making these wigs, but how are they gonna stay on our head?"
Right, for all
Doing
those
this great, and
turns
they were
and
all
everything else.
really heavy, and they had, like, Sari's braids were PVC pipes,
Yep,
like, those are plastic pipes, they don't bend. Mine was a wooden dowel my wig probably weighed, like, easily 8 pounds.
easy.
Easy, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's like dancing with a cat on your head,
And then there was
you
another
know?
rod inside of, the other wig because it was, like, stacked balls.
Yeah, and that also had a PVC pipe hanging off of it,
Yeah,
and so not how we would make them today,
no.
certainly, and I know that I was worried about us getting the sticks caught on them.
Yep.
I was worried about falling off, and so, like, I think what made it hard too is, like, some of the dancing, even watching it, I'm like I remember being there and being like, "I'd rather do this more intensely." Like, if we have our because we have all our practice videos where everybody was really, like, going for it,
Yep.
and you couldn't do it because like, my fucking costume is gonna, like, go to hell, and this is a costume competition at the end of the day, right?
Right.
And I was trying to figure out how to keep mine on, and so people like, "You should use hair combs because obviously I couldn't use, like, bobby pins.
Mhm.
So I put, like, 50,000 combs in that thing, and we wore it all day, like,
Yep.
we wore those all day, and, after we got off stage, we were so excited, I mean, like, we were just so excited we pulled it off
Yeah.
because we didn't even care if we won at that point, like, it was just like, we had a vision,
Mhm.
and we wanted to do it, and fuck, we pulled it off.
And that's the thing,
Like
like, so we're sitting backstage. I remember sitting backstage is like, we killed it. Like, we
mhm.
knew we killed it. And then we're watching it, and we'd be sitting there and be like, "Wow, that was a good skit." And other contestants would be like, "Nah, you guys are better." We're like, "Okay." And
Well,
then
I think we forget too watching the video, people started, like, clapping to it, like, how
Yep.
which they don't do, like, it was really it was different for its time, and even the MC came out afterwards like, "Well, they raised the bar."
Right.
And, I actually had this girl or this guy, no, it was a guy. We competed for a couple years when we did that, like, and it
Mhm.
was a thing, and then, we didn't compete for many years, then I did maybe 4 years after that. I kind of been out of the competition scene for a while,
Right.
and we did a skit, and we were doing it backstage, and some guy had, like, taken pictures of our skit, and so he was like, "Oh, can I have, like, your contact info? I just wanna send you this picture." And I'm like, "Sure." And I handed him my card because by then, cards were, like, a thing.
Yep.
And he goes, "Oh my god, you guys did demo in Circus." And I'm like, I was like, "Yeah," and I didn't know, like, because some people had a negative reaction, which we can talk about, and so I didn't know, like, where he was going with it, so I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "You guys were so good," and I was like, "Well," I was like, "Everybody's good now, I mean, this is amazing," like, because it's different now, like, the bar is so much higher,
Right.
and he goes, "Well, you guys started that, right?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like the nicest thing you've ever said to me about that." But I don't know, I was like, did I wasn't expecting that, and it was a very different thing for the time period
Anime
that we did
Boston was
it.
a very different convention, like, almost
Yes,
straight
it
after that.
wasn't as big as it is now.
No. Like,
Yeah.
now it's cutthroat.
Oh, we would be killed.
I wouldn't even try to compete with any of those kids nowadays.
Yeah,
But, if we did, there
we
would
would
be a
kill it.
slight fear, because I feel like the name still brings a fear to people's, like
I
I'm
don't know if it's
serious. Like, I mean, I mentioned it
know
to
if it's
people.
fear.
It brings fear. No, I'm serious. I brought it up, like, 2 or 3 years after, and people were like, "Oh my god, you were part of that Sailor Moon group?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Are you guys still competing?" And I was like, "No, we judge now at Anime Boston." They're like, "Oh, good." And I'm like, "But we could change our minds at any time."
I know. I have a few really good ideas, but I feel like I would just do it as an exhibition. I'm like, I can't compete against the
No,
kids
no, screw
anymore.
that. We're
We're
too
too
old for
old.
that
We're
shit
too
now.
old.
We're way
We've
too old
been
for that.
judging for like 6 or 7 years, but it's not fair.
Right, and now I host the convention anyway, so it's like,
Yeah.
nah.
No, it wouldn't work. But anyway, yeah, so afterwards, I mean, I think we were so excited. And then we were like, this is the other thing. Back then, they did the awards differently. And as much as Anime Boston runs such a good show now, like it's so
Mhm.
clean and like everything. But I will
Yeah.
say there's one thing I miss about the old days, which is, and I think we were the last year they did it this way. I can't remember that you didn't know who got what award. Now they line them up backstage,
Yeah.
right? So if you're at the end of the line, you won fucking best in show, right?
Yep.
Like, and so they didn't do that back then. We were sitting in the audience because I have it on tape that because we
Yeah.
gone back around and they would announce it, and you'd have no idea. You'd have no idea who got anything or if you got anything. Now when they pull you into the line, you know what, you at least won something, right?
Right.
And we figured we won something because we had done a pretty damn good job,
I mean,
right?
yeah, like, we thought we did, and then they didn't announce us
Right.
for anything, and we were
Right,
like,
and so we were like, "What the hell?" Like, we thought maybe we'd get, like, maybe, like, one of the performance
yeah,
awards
like, best
or whatever,
performance.
and I don't think any of us thought at that point we were gonna get best, like, it wasn't
No.
something we were aiming for, we just had an idea and we wanted it to go well, and so when they announced it, and I was filming it because I had a feeling, but because we didn't win anything,
Right.
that seemed really weird, so when they got to the end, we're like, "Well, we haven't gotten anything, like, there's only 1 award left, like, it's possible this is us,"
Right,
right?
and, like,
So,
I'm literally sitting there, and I was just like, "There's no way. There's no way.
there's no
There's
way we
no
won
way.
nothing, like,
There's no
because I mean,
way."
some of the stuff that wins stuff, you're like, "There's no way we got nothing."
No, but,
So,
I'm saying, like, there's no way we have best in show. There's no way this is
yeah,
happening right
but I
now.
felt
Like,
that,
out of body
and they
experience.
announce it, and it was like pandemonium, and it was such an awesome feeling to just be so shocked, and I think now you don't get that experience because they line you up and
Right, and then the thing was too is I
right?
think they put us out in the audience because 'cause we were on the other side of the stage at that point.
We were because I have it on tape. I don't know why, and I don't remember how that worked,
Right, right,
but
right.
it must have been we also might have gone around because we wanted to watch the AMVs it's different now. I don't remember. I think half the audience would leave. I think they still do. During the AMVs, they don't stay for the awards. So they're like there's all this seating that
Right,
opens
right,
up in the
right.
front, so you just sit down. Um,
But it was crazy.
yeah, it was
We had
insane.
interviews immediately after.
Oh, yeah, we had all these people that interviewed us. Then we went out, we took our cup and we, like, we had the waitress put margaritas in it, we
Yes,
drank
we
out like,
did.
we joked we were gonna drink out of it, we really did it. We won this big we weren't expecting, and that was the other thing, they didn't used to have those awards, like, that was the first year they even gave out a big cup like that.
Yeah.
Because the year before, it was, like, some, like, glass pointy thing or
Yep.
something, and
Yep.
so we weren't expecting it, and we're like, "We're drinking out of this shit."
Yeah, we did, and we did.
And we
Oh
did.
god, we were so like, we barely eaten all day, we looked ratchet because none of us took a shower, we just changed out of the costumes.
Yeah, and I remember I was staying at the Sheridan and, my head was killing me at that point. Like, I had gone on adrenaline, like, most of the day because I was
Mhm.
nervous about it because, like, I wanted it to go well. Everybody had worked so hard,
Right.
and so I was nervous for everybody, not just myself, but because I made it up and I perform a lot, and, like, doing a dance is kinda like I don't even think about the dance anymore. I was just doing it. I was thinking about everybody else. I'm like, "Okay, is everybody good? Like, do they remember what we're doing?" And so,
Well,
yeah,
no,
it was
and the other
great.
thing is too, not to like, get off track, but like
Yeah.
you were competing at Masters because you had won at Journeyman before. I was just in the journeyman category, and I think Gail was like maybe a journeyman.
Yeah, there's no she wasn't a
Bree was
master.
a novice, never
Yeah,
competed before, and because all of us were so high up, we had to compete in masters level.
yeah. And I was still hand sewing my costumes back then. I'd never owned a sewing machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like
I hand beaded the straps for that costume were just plain gold, but I was like, since we were competing, I was like, "Well, I gotta add a little jazz to this." So I hand beaded this design on it, and my office at the time, I still work there. I still have the same job, but, like, it was a smaller company back then, and we would have this very dead season in the spring where nothing was going on, and we all kind of played, like, solitaire and shit at work.
yep,
Doesn't exist anymore.
right.
But at the time it did. So I was sewing this at my desk at work, and for years after that, I found those fucking little beads everywhere. Like 5 years later, I'm like and of course, like, p back then, you also cosplay wasn't a well-known thing, and I'm like, "I'm not gonna tell all my coworkers I do this weird thing," so I told them it was a dance costume.
And not a lie,
It wasn't. It was legit.
but yeah, like we all got rooked into being masters,
Yeah, that immediately bumped us to
and
masters.
now that's all we can compete at.
Yeah, which, by now is fair, but at the time, it was like, "Oh god."
Like, damn it, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but so we were going back to the room, and I've been around adrenaline today, and I had a headache. But I figured because I hadn't eaten all day. But I
Mhm,
also like the wig was getting to me,
mhm,
and I remember we couldn't get an elevator, and finally I said, "Fuck it, I'm taking the stairs." And I walked up like 16 floors
mhm.
in the stairwell, taking out the bobby pins, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" I jokingly said, "I think my scalp is bleeding." I take the wig off. There's blood everywhere. My scalp was bleeding.
Yep,
And I had, like, a welt the size of easily a half dollar,
easy, yep.
right? And I feel like kids are listening to this podcast being, "What's a half dollar?" Uh,
What do we compare a
um,
half dollar to? That
about
chocolate coin you get
a
at
s
Christmas.
a super bouncy ball, maybe?
Right.
Like, right in the middle of the front of my head where I had probably the biggest comb holding this stupid thing in, which I never dared to take off all day because 'cause I'm like, "If this thing comes off, it's not going back on."
Right.
And so it, like, swelled up, like, sticking out of my hairline, like, swelled up. I'm like, "Oh, I hope that goes down. It's not good." Like, maybe 2 days later, all the hair on it fell out, and I had a bald spot, and I didn't know what to do. I, like, freaked out. I was, like, 25, and I had no hair. And I was like, "How do I do? Do I, like, rub Rogaine on it?" Like, I don't know.
I just remember you being like, "Guys, I have a bald spot." I'm like, "But we won best in show."
Like, totally worth it. I was like, "If it grows back, it'll be worth it." I, um so I had it and I freaked out for maybe about a month, and then at the end of the month, I saw a little stubble coming out of it. I'm like, "Oh, thank God it's growing back." So it took a year for me to grow this hair back. So, like, if you look and I started doing the Anime Cons TV podcast in 2009, which is the
Mhm.
same year this happened. So if you watch the podcast, you'll start to notice I had, like, a clip in the middle of my head for no reason that was holding back, like, these tiny little bangs
Yep.
that just slowly got longer, and I finally could pull it back into a ponytail. So,
Oh
it was
my
all
god.
good in the end,
It
but I
was.
remember it was, like, people would ask me about that for, like, a year afterwards, like, "What happened to your hair?" I'm like, "Well,
Well,
I won an award."
the sacrifices we make.
I know, but yeah, it was a good time. And, did you talk about, like, creepy photographer guy?
Oh, no, I never mentioned the guy who was writing everybody's boobs taking pictures.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like I could do an entire podcast episode about, like, weird shit, like, creepy sexual harassment shit that happened in cosplay, and I would argue out of all the things I experienced, this was the tamest.
Mm,
But it was blatant and pretty, and I honestly do think a ton of shit happens now, and I'm not downplaying, like, any of the garbage that happens now because all sorts of horrible things still happen.
oh, yeah,
But
100%.
I do feel like the whole cosplay is not consent movement has improved general interactions. Like, I feel like people don't, like, fly by take photos of you so much. People don't glomp you anymore.
Right,
Like, most people ask you for a hug. Like, I think it is at least surface level better,
right,
right?
100%.
And so back then, things were still very Wild West.
Mhm.
Right? Like, there was no etiquette. Like, now at least I feel like there's rules of etiquette and people break it, they break it, but, like, there was no rules.
Like, we were on the cuspice of just losing the yaoi paddles.
Yes, I think people don't remember the yaoi. I literally have a friend who started cosplaying with us and going to cons in 2012, and we tell her stories about, like, glumping and yaoi battles, and she goes, "I would have been out." Like, yeah. Uh, so, um, so yeah, we were very close to the point at which actual physical assault was allowed and encouraged. So,
Yes,
um
go
and
ahead.
I feel like we have some friends in our group that talk about this incident like it was, like, the worst thing that ever happened to them. I'm like, "The year before, I literally punched a dude in the face because he grabbed my tit for a
Mhm.
picture." So, like, I feel like this is not up there on the level, but it was still so blatant. Like, we were pretty popular with the cameras back then. I think people took a lot more pictures back then too. Now I think people have seen so many good costumes, like, like, they and I don't take as many pictures as I used to either.
No,
And we did, but we were a group, which always attracts more, and we were a very unusual group. People didn't cosplay Dead Moon Circus. They still
no,
don't really. It's still
no.
unusual. And we had all of them, and we were
Mhm,
together. And so we kind of found a place in the hallway out of the way where we just kind of posed, and people, like, massive amounts of cameras were coming and, like, taking pictures. So there were so many people that probably witnessed this. So we were, like, posing, and there's probably, like, I don't know, 30 people taking photos. And
mhm.
this dude comes in. Was it a video camera?
Oh, no, it was a camera.
And he just, like, so we're holding, like, the sticks and whatever, and he just comes, like, up to, like, within, like, a few inches from, like, everybody, and, like, just starts blatantly take pictures of people's, like, asses and, like, tits and stuff and, like,
Mhm.
whatever, and we're just standing there like, I'm I'm really bad with an immediate reaction when I'm so, like, taken aback by the action itself. Like,
Right.
I usually think of a good thing to say about 30 seconds after it happened.
Yeah, like me, like 10 years ago, like more shell shocked. If he had done it to us now, he'd be dead.
Oh, yeah, he'd be totally dead.
He'd be dead.
Yeah, I must say in my older age, I'm much more quick to be
Yeah, the
outspoken.
tolerance is gone.
Yeah, it's over. Now, I'm actually impressed I punched the other guy in the
Mm,
face.
mhm, mm.
Anyway, so yeah, it was a different time, and our response time was nil, and he just, like, blatantly did it, and I would say it lasted, like, at least a good 2 or 3
Hey, but
minutes.
nobody else there
And
stopped him.
nobody said anything. Nobody, I feel like today, if that happened, somebody would have said something.
100%.
Even if it wasn't one of us. One of the other people in the crowd taking pictures would have been like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right.
But that was a different time, and people are just like, "Eh."
They're probably like, "Oh my god, where are you putting those so we can stare at them too?" Sickos. "Oh
I
my god, you
mean
got such a good tit shot." Mm.
like, when the one of the admins at cosplay.com was like a raging creepo and it was accepted. What are you
But
gonna
that's
do?
but that's another podcast for another
That's
time.
another podcast. He's still out there.
Right. Yeah, no, the original Dead Moon Circus group is clutch. We did
Yeah, that was a good time.
it was.
And if I still watch it and I'm still like, "I like that dance."
I do. I watched it the other day.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
good
it was
dance.
good. It was good.
And then you guys continued with Dead Moon Circus the following year.
We did. We didn't originally intend to use it, like, as a cosplay group name, but, and now I feel like it's like we just say it and it applies to all of our friends who, whether they ever did a skit with us or not, it's
Right.
just like it's the friend group name now. But, we we wanted to do it again. We wanted to try to see if we could, and I think this skit, I always feel like Battlefields was kind of like that dangerous thing where you try to recreate a unicorn,
Yep.
right? And but we there was a lot of motivation to wanna do it again, to kind of be like, we had a good time, mostly because we had a good time, I would
Right.
argue, and, we all became really good friends doing that skit. Because, like, I mean, I knew you, Katie, but, like, I think we became, and I knew, like, Bree, but I wasn't friends with her, and I think we all kind of became closer.
Right, we bonded.
We bonded doing it, and we really also liked the idea that it was fun to put so much effort into an idea and, like, bring it, and there's not a lot of people who are willing to put that much effort into it, I guess.
Right.
So we're like, let's do it again, right? And so, but completely the opposite of the year before, which is very serendipitous. I think we struggled a lot with the idea. We really wanted to do, like, stage combat,
Mhm.
but we didn't have that really great convergence of, oh, this song and these characters and goes with this. I struggled with the choreography a lot. It was hard to do. It was hard, and it was hard to do. Like we had all these awesome physical ideas that once we decided to do, because we ended up doing Chrono Crusade, and we ended up having the boys do expanding wings for the demons.
Yep.
And once we decided they had to wear wings, a lot of the stuff we had already planned to do physically, we couldn't do anymore.
Right.
So that was like a huge trade-off, right? That we decided to go for this like wow factor with the wings, which worked on stage, thank you God, because if they hadn't, I didn't want to live with
It was a whole
my
Jabeth
husband.
moment. Because
Well,
the thing was is, like, so you guys did this group, and I didn't participate with you because I had been asked to judge.
right. So you had been taken out of it. You were asked
Right,
to
and
judge.
actually, I just brought this up in my last, podcast, like, a couple weeks ago now because when this airs, but I
Yeah.
talked about how I got asked to judge, and there were 2 groups in this masquerade, both in the masters level, and there was another person judging with us who also had the other friend group as, like, his friends group.
Yeah, so I guess it turned into, like, a whole drama thing, right?
Oh
Because
oh my god, was
well
it a drama thing.
well, it was such a
Like,
drama
long story
I
short,
like how I just, like, wrote that off, like, I guess it turned to drama. It was a huge fucking
are
drama
you
thing,
kidding
right?
me?
So,
It's
well,
a
first of
huge
all,
drama
let's
thing.
let's put it out first that when we won the first time, it was already a huge drama thing. Now, nobody thought we shouldn't have won,
Right,
right? So everybody, like, when we won Dead Moon Circus, it was pretty blatantly obvious we were the best skit of the night. Like, and as a judge, someone who judges Anime Boston now,
yeah.
it always feels good when the crowd agrees with you, right? Like, and you want to pick who you think the crowd would agree with, right?
Right,
It very rarely, and I think as a judge, the only time I ever freak out about best in show is because is these days they have to enter craftsmanship too. And back in our day, it wasn't an option. If you entered the show, you were already entered in craftsmanship and performance. So anybody could win best in show. Where
exactly,
now it's a limited amount of people. And so as a judge, that's stressful because whatever.
exactly.
Because you were like, "Oh, well, I wanted to pick these people, but they didn't enter craftsmanship, so please don't hate me, audience. It wasn't like a bias thing, you know?" But
Right,
anyway, so when we won Dead Moon Circus, nobody disagreed we should won, but there was this whole fucking, of course, like 4chan was in its I don't think it's in its infancy, but it was in its more innocent time because now they're running governmental insurrections.
right.
But at the time it was still making fun of fat people mostly, which
Mhm.
I would argue we were all relatively average size.
Yep,
Um, I mean, I was skinnier then than I am now,
same,
I was
same.
25. I but, and I think that, yeah, I mean, we were not, like, supermodel level people, and none of us ever will be, but,
No,
there was a raging debate online about our body types and that we wore two-piece costumes and that, how good of dancers we are. There was this whole thing, did I steal the choreography? I didn't fucking steal I made it up. I have all the tapes in my basement of me making it
nope.
up. There's one move I took from the, "Oops, I Did It Again" music video, like, one move,
Yeah,
which as a dancer, people do that all the time,
right.
but the rest of it was original, and,
And that was our homage to Britney Spears because it was a Britney Spears song.
right, it was a call out to Britney Spears, I did it on purpose,
Right,
um, and there was a lot of debate of, like, "Oh, well, why didn't just, like, Shiva pick, like, better people to dance with?" Like, I picked my friends, like, this wasn't, like, a dance competition, or,
right,
like, "Oh, she's not really that good." I'm like, "Dude, this also wasn't a dance competition, and I have a 10-pound thing on my head, and, like, I wasn't trying to."
right,
And then we also had, like, half the people I would say defended us. There were people like, "Oh my god, they're so good, and I love how they move, and, like, they look like real women," and so I would say it was, like I would say, like, even the people who are trying to hate on us were getting kind of shit on for hating on us.
right,
And this was before the whole body positivity thing, so it's kinda cool. It was kinda like, okay, we caused some drama, but obviously we did a high profile performance at a big convention, and we won a big award, and we did have, like, costumes on that at the time we were gonna invite criticism, that we weren't, like, super skinny. So,
right,
fair, fair.
fair.
We won, and we didn't care. We just found it kind of amusing, but
Right.
when people found out we were gonna do another one,
Yep,
it became incredibly dramatic
yep,
because it became this whole thing like we were defending a title we already own. And like instead of it just being like we're entering a masquerade, it became this thing was like people had to beat us.
right,
And it created an incredible amount of pressure.
right.
that we didn't have the first time, which made it really hard. And then I think there was also a lot of like dynamics within people that we knew who were
Mhm.
upset and
And that's
caused
the
a
thing is,
lot
like,
of
all of a sudden it came
additional.
out that I wasn't part of the group and I was judging. So immediately people just
People were like,
assumed it was
they're going to do it, and I think the only reason we used the Dead Moon Circus name, because we could have done some other name and probably most of the crowd wouldn't have known who we were, but we kind of wanted to be like, we picked that name because, like, well, that's what people know us from,
right.
right? And we're just like, we were the people that did that skit last year. That was kind of why we picked it.
Right, and the thing is too is
Yeah.
the other kid and I, we'd already had a conversation with the other judges going, "Hi, both of our friends groups are in this masquerade. We are not judging them."
Right. So this kind of so what basically came to a head was that I would argue the masquerade that year. I don't remember a lot of the other skits because honestly, my stomach was so in knots about the whole thing, and
Mhm.
I don't remember if we were near the end, but we were closer to the end than the beginning. Let's put it that way. And I couldn't pay attention to a lot of them just because I was freaking out about like 20 different things, right?
Right,
And for both personal and cosplay reasons. And I think that I don't have a good sense of the other skits that were there, except for the one that was probably our closest competition, which had a lot of veteran cosplayers in it. I knew a lot of the people in it, like,
yep.
and not personally, but like we knew of each other. They weren't strangers.
Right.
And I thought their skit was awesome. I actually thought they did it was like this witches thing. I forget what it was. It was a really popular thing at the time.
Right. I remember the show, but I just can't remember the name of it.
Flamenco, whatever, right? And I thought they had like matching witch costumes are really cute. They had really good staging. I couldn't follow it, but I also didn't know the anime
Right.
that it was from. But I've watched it since because sometimes like you want to be like, because okay, I'm years away from it, Clouded Judgment, and it was really good, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that everybody in the crowd knew it was going to come down between these two skits. So people were
Right.
thinking of it as a us versus them kind of thing.
Right.
And as you mentioned, the the potential for favoritism was that you were in the judges panel and you had been part of our group, but there was also a guy on the judges panel who was like really good friends with the people in the other group. So it was like an equal amount of bias potential, right?
Right. And
And
we're
people forget that
backstage.
part. People forget that part.
Right, and we're backstage, and they're literally arguing with us, and we're like, "We're not judging it. You guys have to decide between the 2." And it
Right.
literally came down to craftsmanship judging. It came down to us standing in an empty elevator with the craftsmanship
I
papers
know that
in our
elevator.
hand, adding up numbers. Like, you guys won by, like, 2 fucking points.
Yeah, it was really close. And
It
and
was
I think and I
stupid.
think if we hadn't done the stupid thing was I think we would have done a better dance without the wings, but I think the wings is why we won.
It really honestly, I think it was, like, somebody had rated your wings, like, by 2 points, and it was like, "That's it, they have it."
Yeah, because
And it
I remember we brought, like, all the because Sketch, who's now my husband,
yeah, yeah.
made them, and they were I mean, I saw the construction went to him because I helped him, like, do the skin on them,
Yep.
which covered up all the crazy work under it, but we, like, took pictures of how they were constructed and, like, brought them to judging, so I think and then they worked. I think the big stress was, are they gonna work? Because we kind of laid the whole crux of this being on this thing, and they weren't very reliable, like, sometimes they didn't work, right? And so we're like, "Are they gonna work on stage?"
Mhm.
And thank God they did, because 1, I think it's why we won, but more importantly, I didn't wanna live with my husband feeling like it was his fault that we lost because they didn't work, right? Like, I was, like, taking on that stress myself because I didn't wanna deal with the emotional aftermath of that. But yeah, it ended up we won, but I would say it was probably the most unenjoyable win I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was miserable because everybody was mad about it.
Yep.
We couldn't enjoy it, and it really turned me off to competing for a long time. It turned into, like, this whole online drama. People
Yep.
were mad that we cheated. People were mad that, like, there was favoritism.
People
People
said I
blamed
got banned,
you. Yeah, people thought you got banned from the convention you now host the masquerade
which
at.
I now found out because I talked to Doug the other day.
Yeah.
Apparently, that was, like, something the entire Anime Boston staff knew too.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes,
Crazy.
"Katie, everybody knew about that." I'm like, "What do you mean everybody knew
But
about
here's
that?"
also the stupidest thing, right?
was like, "It's
The
so dumb."
cosplay world was so small back then.
I know.
Everybody always knew everybody. Like, let's put it this way, I competed in a lot of smaller competitions where Sketch was the judge every single time, and I would win, and it wasn't because I knew like, I was really close to him, like and I even told him flat out several times, I'm like, "I hope you don't think I expect you to give me something." He's like, "Absolutely not." I'm like, "Good, because I don't, and I don't want you to." But, like, what else are you gonna do? Like, I mean, I would compete in competitions where, like, the judges were, like, Sketch, who I was, like, dating, Patrick D, who I'm really good friends with, and, like, what are they gonna do? It's like but I judge now too, and it's really easy, you just judge the performance. Like, who
Right,
gives a shit?
right,
I don't pay attention to who it is,
right.
you know? And that maybe some people would, and they can't believe that, but
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing,
for
at the end of the
sure.
day, it's like, you're gonna believe what you're gonna believe,
Right, exactly.
but I have always judged a fair show.
Me too.
You have always
I'm
judged a
actually
fair show.
super proud of how I've judged, and,
Yeah,
like,
same, like, it's pretty much you, me, and Sketch sitting next to each other at a convention judging everybody now.
yeah, and I think we're really good at it.
Yeah,
But, and I love doing my favorite thing to do is we've done a couple of them, like, panels at conventions about, like, what judges look for because I think we have a good assortment of what we look for, and, like, also, I like to tell people what I'm not judging them on.
yeah,
You know, like, I don't I don't I'm not rooting against you, I'm rooting for you, I want you to do well. Like, I don't wanna judge a show where everybody fucks up. Like, I wanna judge a show of a bunch of good people, a bunch of I want everyone to do well. Like, don't freak out, don't be scared of me, you
right,
know, and I think that, and here's the stuff that works, and here's the stuff that doesn't work, and,
exactly.
yeah. So I actually like the fact that we all judge because I feel like we've had really drama-free masquerades.
I do, I think, like, I
I
feel like
I
we've
always
reached all
look
the
online
humans.
to see if people bitch about what we picked, and they never have. I've never seen anything. Yeah, so
You would. I'm
well,
like,
I'm jaded from that whole
I
experience.
know, I'm just like, "I don't care, hate me, I don't care. You don't
No,
hate
I
me.
I don't care, but I'm curious, right? And I think that we do a good job.
I
So,
don't care," as I'm looking at 4chan as the masquerade's ending.
okay, I'm not going on 4chan ever again because I'm probably be put on some FBI watch list, okay?
That's fair. That
Yeah,
is fair.
no. 4chan is way beyond what it used to be,
Say,
and
but
I only went on there to look at shit about me, never
right, but as stressful
participated.
as that year was, you did get a husband out of it.
I did, I did. That's a whole whole 'nother drama.
That's a whole new trophy. Yeah.
That's the best trophy. See, I did win in
Yeah.
the end. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, that's
yeah.
that is a situation for a podcast that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, that podcast will never exist.
'Cause that was not convention. It was and was not convention related, but also your
Yeah.
son never needs to know that story.
No, well, he can have a highly edited version
Highly edited as in
after he's married.
yeah, right, highly edited as in, "I wasn't dating your dad, and now I was." The end.
The end.
That's the whole
And
story.
we had you, and we love you very much.
We love you so much.
We love you so much, and we still love each other very much.
We love you so much, rhododendron bush.
Shut up. I love you, Katie. I love
I love
you.
you, Jess.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that was pretty much the drama of Dead Moon Circus was just that we won. We did a really good show, and then we did an okay show that we happened to win at, and people got really mad about it. But whatever.
Right. And that's it. That's the whole
I feel
point.
like that's water under the. I feel like people that were mad about that though had also personal problems with us, and if people that look at that skit now are like, "Yeah, it was good."
Yeah.
I've watched it. It wasn't as good as our rehearsals, but it was decent.
I mean, hell, it got us the best in show, so what do we know?
I'm not embarrassed by it.
No,
Let's put it
ma'am.
that
I show
way.
that to people still.
Yeah.
I was like, "Look at
Yeah.
I danced."
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. And I will say, we all were helping each other finish up those costumes in the hotel room,
Yep.
the night before, and
Yes,
I
we
wasn't
were.
staying with you guys. I was staying with who the heck was I staying with?
You were saying, like yeah, you were in the other
I was in a different hotel. I was in the Sheraton. You guys were, like, at the
yeah, it
across
was
the street.
me and Gail and Bree and Steve at the Marriott.
Yeah, I don't
And it was,
remember
like,
who
2
I'm
in the
staying
morning,
with.
you had to go back to your hotel room, and you got chased by that dude.
Oh my god, that was so okay, there's only been 2 times at a convention I've been afraid for my life, okay? Because shit happen I think there's a big difference, and this is not to, like, negate anyone's experience. I think there's a difference between stuff that's creepy, like, I'm uncomfortable and I don't like this, and then there's, like, fear,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm afraid I'm in danger. Like,
Right.
those are 2 different things,
Yep.
like, and I've had both experiences.
Yep.
And, There's only 2 times I'm afraid of danger. That was one of them. So we go over I was over at your hotel, which is a totally different building,
Yep.
in Boston, and I was helping you guys sew, and I helped Katie sew a very up close and personal part of her costume. We became even
She
better
was
friends
in
that
between
night.
my legs.
I was with a needle. The needle. And, but hey, we made it work. We
Yeah.
made it work.
Yeah.
And I helped you guys and we kind of got everybody good to go. And it was probably about 2 or 3 in the morning, right? So we were really exhausted after the show. God. So anyway, and I had to go back to my hotel room, which was in the Sheraton. And God, the stuff I used to wear to conventions when I was like 25 years old was probably like a short skirt and like a tube top. Like Jesus. The hell. Anyway, so I was shopping for a man. Let's
Let's be real. You didn't have Rob yet.
No, I didn't. I was reeling him in. So but anyway, he had nothing to do with this. He wasn't even like
Yeah.
I wasn't staying with him.
No.
So I was walking back and I was a little nervous, but it's like across the street and it's like not a bad part of Boston and whatever. But the Sky Bridge was closed. They close it down in a certain hour. So I actually had to go like out into the city. And then I got into the mall part and like so I'm kind of like power walking. I have my phone like in my hand and my card key like in the other, like I'm like ready to go. And I'm walking through Mall Park and I made it halfway through the mall and there were like these huge guys like and there were more than one of them. And they started calling like, "Where are you going?" Like blah blah blah. Like and one guy goes, "I think I just found my new girlfriend." And he starts power walking after me. And I start running. And he starts chasing me through the fucking Prudential Center Mall. And I don't know what's going to happen. I literally got in the elevator and was like, "Doors together!" and slammed the elevator doors on him. And that was before you needed a room key to get in the elevator at night
Thank
too. I mean,
God.
this is like way back in the day. And I heard him like hit the door, but the elevator was always going. I don't know what would have happened if I was it was not okay.
Oh,
The
God.
other one was at Kineticon. It was a Kineticon. I was rooming with you, but you weren't there. I was rooming with you and Bree and Steve and Keith. It was I wasn't dating Rob yet. It was the year before. So maybe
Uh-huh.
2009. So it was 2009. It was the same year. Later the same year. The same year. 2 times I was afraid for my life. Uh, I was wearing that Dion Rogers Renoa costume,
Yep.
which is probably like the sluttiest costume I've ever done.
Hmm.
I looked good in it back then though.
Mhm.
I'm not ashamed. I was
You
like,
shouldn't
damn.
be.
I mean, because at the time I was like self-conscious in it. I've looked at pictures now. I'm like, damn, I looked good. Anyway, so I I was wearing that, so probably like a more attention drawing costume than most of the stuff I would wear. And I was going back. We were staying in the hotel, like right across the thing. And I was going back to the room by myself to get something. Like nobody else was in the room. And I don't remember, like I blocked it out, like what exchange happened, what happened. But this another huge fucking guy, like big guy, started
Mhm.
like exchanging words with me and I was like blowing him off and then he got mad about it and like followed me to my room like and I ran to the room. I got in the room before him. I slammed the door and I did the chain thing and he was pounding on the hotel room door. Like I was screaming and I was terrified. I remember I was texting like I'm like you guys need to come back. I can't leave the room. Like I can't leave. You guys need to get me food. You need to come back here. Like there's this guy and I can't leave. But
I
I was so relieved I made it into the room, but
Was it the
I've
Saturday or
never been more
Friday night?
I think it was Friday.
Then I was at, Dating Game. That's why I wasn't there.
Yeah,
We were
no,
all at Dating Game because me, Steve, and Bree were all in Dating Game.
that's what it was. Yeah, because I didn't wear that costume on Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was I was never been so scared
Yeah. It's
because
fucked
I was
up.
in yeah, it's fucked up.
Don't be fucked up at a convention, please.
Yeah, don't like if some girl blows you up, leave her alone. She said
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
Like
no means no,
fucking
means
walk
no, means
away.
no,
Like that's
means
scary. And if you ever see that, I mean, nobody witnessed this. This wasn't one of those things where like someone should have intervened. Like there was nobody
Right,
around.
right, right.
Like, it's probably during some big event. We were in the hotel, nobody was around, and it was, like, one of the most terrifying things I've ever had happen at a convention. It was horrible.
Right. But, like, if
Anyway.
you ever see it, like, say
Yeah,
something.
say something. Say even if, like, you're just some, like, 4-foot tall person, just the fact that someone else has witnessed it makes people think twice.
Right.
Like, if someone would say, "Hey, what's happening?" Like, he might have turned around, you know, it
Right.
was really scary, yeah. Anyway. Those are my 2 life-threatening moments at conventions. Just to end on that dramatic note.
We're gonna end on that dramatic note, but Jess, we're
Yeah.
definitely gonna have you back because we have so many other stories to share. I
Oh, we have
mean,
so many.
so many.
So many.
And you still have to bother your husband to make him come on here and talk.
He'll do it.
Oh, he will.
He'll do it.
Oh, he'll do it.
He'll do whatever I tell him to do.
Is there You will listen to me.
I'm just kidding. He does what he wants.
Is there anything you'd like to promote while you're here, my dear?
God, I have nothing to promote. So I've heard the rumor that like everybody on the Anime Cons TV podcast promotes the Anime Cons TV podcast. So
Every single one of them.
So I'm not going to.
Because I'm not going to.
I mean, I still do that podcast, which has been on for like 12 years, which is insane. But I guess if we started doing it the year we did Dead Moon Circus, I guess that's a freaking long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm also probably like the laziest member of the Anime Cons TV podcast, so I don't feel like I should promote it. Like Patrick and Doug and Elizabeth do all the work. Like I just show up. So because I'm mildly entertaining. Yeah, and I'll tell the stories other people don't want to tell, like the people fucking on the Sky Bridge at Dragon Con last year.
100%.
100%. I don't care. I will say that. So yeah, so I don't have anything to promote. I guess I've taken the pandemic break to redo Robin's cosplay website. So it's sketchandshiva.com if you ever want to visit and look at our costumes and the videos of that we just talked about of our skits are all on there. So you can view them.
And they are amazing costumes, guys. Like my friends show up. Like, I'm sorry. Like I can say that. Like we as a group, like we may not be cosplay famous. We may not be like Yaya Han or anything, but we show up.
But I remember Yaya Han when she was still like 16. So
right.
Yeah.
God. Way to age ourselves again on that note.
Yeah, I know. She's modeling for the Fairy Grove.
Before people think we're like 50. Have a good night, everyone.
We're so old.
We're not. Good night, everyone.
Good night.